Well, hello again, and what is it, Sunday the 26th of October 2025. I don't know where the year's gone, it's flashed by, hasn't it? And it's 21 minutes past midday. So, much smaller notebook this week. So I don't know how long this one's going to go for. This one might be shorter. The last couple have been reasonably long, an hour or so. I think this one will be much shorter. There is plenty of rubbish around this week. I'll comment on some of it. But yeah, I think this all this ETs coming here, crashing here, this disclosure movement or whatever it is dying in the backside quite rapidly. Haven't seen much from Danny Sheehan. I did see him on a panel program. Didn't look very happy. He was on there with Chris Bledsoe, FFS, you know, Mr. Credibility. And, you know, I'm sure Danny Sheehan is looking forward to next year's Global Egg on Face Day. Didn't see anything for their disclosure day, of course, on the 20th. What was that, last week? Because there's nothing to disclose. It's all bullshit. Okay, so what do we have? Now, the USA Herald newspaper, which apparently publishes a few conspiracy theories, but I think this is actual fact, tells us SETI have revised their alien contact protocols amid rising fascination with 3-Eye Atlas. I suppose they're sort of strange timing indeed. You know, perhaps they've just taken Avi Loeb's advice, you know, and thought about what they would do if 3-Eye Atlas turns out to be an alien spacecraft. What if we do get visited by a real alien spacecraft? Because that's never happened, of course, in the past. So what would they do? Now, so just in case, I suppose, they've thought, okay, let's listen to Avi Loeb, he's a real scientist, and he says, what if? Okay, so let's sit around and just discuss what if. So they've decided to revise their protocols, their alien contact protocols. Now, personally, I don't think they're going to be needing to put these into action anytime soon, but anyway, they're revising them. So what have they done? So they've decided that no individual, research group or private actor is permitted to reply to any potential alien signal without first obtaining international approval through official channels, chiefly the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Use of Outer Space, UNCOPOUS. Now, I wonder if there were really any aliens out there, whether they'd be remotely interested in what the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space have to say, to be perfectly honest. See, the other thing too is, I mean, they're talking about, you know, private actor. So who's a private actor? Someone with a dish in the back garden? How exactly would they police that? If someone with a dish in the back garden picked up something for a start, how would they understand what the message was? Average Joe's not going to be able to generate a signal of enough power to go any, you know, realistic distance. No individual research group, well, that's probably something like SETI, although they can't respond. Their telescopes are listen only. Of course, Arecibo is gone. There's some telescopes. The Chinese FAST has no transmitter, that can't respond. So there's, you know, there's not many. There's one or two in Russia, I think, that have got high power transmitters that were similar to Arecibo that could realistically respond to an alien message. I suppose it's just legalese. How I don't think it's possible to police this personally. Now, I'll leave a link to this article below. I've seen it in other places as well, but they seem to say the same thing, so even if this particular paper isn't overly credible, the information with regard this is the same as you'll find in other more credible publications. See, the thing is, I mean, yeah, who is going to be able to receive an alien signal, understand it and respond to it realistically? Yeah, okay, so Russia, see, China might have radio telescopes with transmitters on, big high power transmitters, but the big one they've got doesn't have a transmitter. So if Russia decided to respond, you know, what's the UN going to do? Send them a nasty email? Yeah, it's not really worth revising these protocols. I mean, I've spoken to people involved with the SKA here, and they say that as far as they're concerned, they wouldn't keep it secret. So maybe I'll ask them again, has that changed due to this protocol? I would imagine they would just laugh. Information like that is going to leak out, you know, it's just one of those things. They can't respond to it either. They don't have any high power transmitting equipment. That's a listen only thing, the square kilometre array. You know, so if anybody picked up a message, how would they know it was for us? Unless they could speak alienese. Now, apparently Karl Nell is the one running around behind the scenes telling everyone there's zero doubt ET is here, and what he said at the SALT conference, there's zero doubt we're interacting with ETs. He tells us that when asked how he knows this, he says, well, just listen to what all these people are saying. So he's choosing to believe what he's hearing, and he's repeating it as truth. Now, Karl Nell has an impressive background with the Space Force, defence contractors, yet he has no personal experience with ET materials. He chooses to believe others and repeat what he's been told as truth. With a claim as monumental as ET is coming here, this just does not cut the mustard. Only peer-reviewed tangible evidence should be presented, not third, fourth-hand science fiction stories. Karl Nell is now saying disclosure is dead. This current round of disclosure is dead. Nothing's going to be disclosed. Well, of course not. There's nothing to disclose. But they've run out. They're getting less and less credible. These witnesses they're putting in front of Congress, and you know, more and more people are saying this is all bullshit. It's just story after story after story. We need to see tangible evidence of ET coming here. You know, science fiction stories just do not cut the mustard. So Karl Nell has realised this, and he says that this current push for disclosure is dead. It's had it. People are walking away saying it's all bullshit, there's nothing but stories. And he's absolutely right, of course. There's nothing to disclose. Now, hang on. Wasn't going to do that bit. Alright, I'll do this bit. I didn't realise it was sort of close to the front. I thought this was more, it belongs at the back really. But I saw this this woman I'd never seen before, and she's on a couple of different YouTube interview type programs. Dr. Katherine Milano, and she tells us she's been to Mars, and there are cities there. Her claims are very similar to the ones made by Corey Good. You know, that alone tells us we should put a line through her stories. She claims to be part of the secret space program and has done the 20 and back twice. You know, the 20 and back, where they de-age people and they're not really gone from their normal lives, you know. I mean, it's just drivel, isn't it? Yeah, she's interacted with ETs. So she's done the 20 and back twice. She's interacted with ETs. Now, actually, I think I did. Now, yeah, Dr. Milano has experimented with hallucinogenic drugs. And she specialises in giving patients hallucinogenic drugs so they can recall their suppressed secret space program experiences. So her patients come to her and she gives them hallucinogenic drugs, and then they start telling her all these stories about, you know, being in this 20 and back secret space program. They've been to Mars now, and then the doctor, she's only recently discovered that she was a member of this secret space program herself, and that was after she administered the hallucinogenic drugs to herself. People believe this, really? When's the book coming out, Dr. Milano, I wonder? So she's only been aware of this, I don't know, she looks like she might be in her mid-40s maybe a bit older, but she's only been aware of this for the last 6 months. She tells us she's seen Draco's spacecraft. She opened a portal for the Draco on Mars. Draco from science fiction, probably, you know, short for draconian maybe. You know, it's apparently she helped the Dracos open a portal. She had to open a portal. She doesn't tell us how she opened this portal. And the Dracos came through this portal. I think this was on Mars. You know, she was on a city called Ares Prime. FFS, really, you know. And then they were going to assassinate her. They were going to murder her. Even that's hardly showing any gratitude from the Draco, is it? You know, she opens a portal for them, and they come through the portal, and then say they're going to kill her. But then they realise that she was a Pleiadian ambassador. I really can't believe I wasted 15 minutes of my life on this complete and utter drivel. I should have asked her, you know, how do you open the portal? Yeah, what do the Pleiadians call themselves? You know, because that's what the name we gave the Pleiades. You know, what do the Pleiadians call themselves? They don't call themselves Pleiadians, presumably. You know, she. Now she tells us that she was sort of primed for all this. From childhood. When she was 3 years old, she was taken and she was put in an electrified cage with all these kids had their own electrified cages. Now this is the old super soldier stuff. Do you remember going back 10 or 15 years, there was all this complete bullshit about these super soldiers? It's exactly the same story. Yeah, I think I think Dr. Milano should keep away from her hallucinogenic drugs, personally. I mean, if she really believes what she's saying after she's weaned herself off these hallucinogenic drugs, she should probably consult a shrink herself. She's a shrink. Yeah, she's a shrink, that's right. Yeah, I really can't believe that I wasted 15 minutes of my life listening to this woman's complete and utter rubbish. Science fiction drivel. Now, James Fox has been begging people to watch the new science fiction movie Age of Disclosure. He says, spread the trailer, get as many people to watch it as possible. Of course, he has to say that because all this ET nonsense is his living, all this bullshit is his living. ET's coming here and crashing here is his livelihood. Spreading this rubbish is his job. Put a line through James Fox, zero credibility, absolute bloody rubbish. Our old mate Ross Coulthart was on a panel with Danny Sheehan and Chris Bledsoe. Having Bledsoe on there tells us how much credibility we should give this panel. Danny Sheehan looked like he'd been, he was sitting on a cactus or something. He really didn't look very happy. Because his Global Disclosure Day fell in a heap, of course, because they had nothing to disclose. It was Global Debacle Day. I think you should change the name of it to the Global Egg on Face Day, because that's what they've certainly had for the last two. And that's what they're going to have next year as well, because there's nothing to disclose. They can push for disclosure as hard and as long as they like. It's not going to happen because there's nothing to disclose. Yeah. Oh, and Sheehan, I saw something else where Sheehan is saying that the reptilians are controlling disclosure. He can't disclose anything because the reptilians, the lizard men, are telling him he can't. Is that what he's saying? Good grief, you know. Well, the lizard men are putting pressure on the governments all around the world to keep this suppressed. I mean, what a load of rubbish, really. You know, there are no reptilians, there are no Dracos. And there's nothing to disclose. You know, I'm sure Sheehan is looking forward to next year's Global Egg on Face Day, where he can tell us all he has nothing to disclose yet again, because there's nothing to disclose. Now, while we're on the subject of Coulthart, he was doing his usual Coulthart gross embellishment nonsense. He was saying that he had Beatriz Villarroel on there, and he was saying that these UFOs were in geostationary orbit. Now that is a gross embellishment, because there is no evidence to support them being in geostationary orbit. Now, he shared a photo of a line of dots. Now, obviously Coulthart doesn't really understand the word stationary. A line of dots are not stationary, are they? Geostationary means the satellite does not move in relation to the Earth. No evidence to show these things were no tangible evidence to show these things were geostationary. It's just an opinion. Someone said these look like they might be in geostationary orbit. Coulthart jumps on that. These objects were in geostationary orbit. Put a line through Coulthart. This is not credible. Now, geostationary orbits also only work above the equator. Where were these pictures taken? You know, where was the Palomar telescope pointing in the sky? Does Coulthart know geostationary orbits only work with spacecraft or above the equator at a certain distance? So they're travelling at 17,000 miles an hour, the escape velocity, but they have to get further and further and further away from the planet so they can be travelling at that speed yet maintain the same position with regard the Earth. Geostationary orbit. Now, Villarroel's papers were peer-reviewed. The peers said there wasn't enough evidence to determine what the objects are. I did have a quick look through what they'd passed, and it said there wasn't enough evidence to. I can't remember how it was worded now. I probably should have done and put a link to it below, but basically there's not enough evidence to say what these things are. There's a physicist scientific paper hub called Archive, ARXIV, that have rejected Villarroel's papers because there's zero tangible evidence to link the objects shown in Villarroel's photographs to extraterrestrials. Probably as good a reason as any, really, isn't it? Now, although Sputnik was the first satellite put into orbit, there would have been previous attempts that failed. Between 1945 and 1957, Werner von Braun and his rocket research team that went to the US from Germany at the end of the war, would not have been standing around whistling with their hands in their pockets. They would have been playing with rockets. You know, they worked for the US Army at Fort Bliss, launching and improving V2 rockets. Remember the V2 rockets? Now, it's also worth noting that the first rocket to ever reach space was a V2, launched during the Second World War. That's pre-1945. Or pre-mid-1945. So von Braun and his rocket team were improving and launching these V2 rockets that had been moved from Germany to America. They were tweaking them, trying to get them to go higher and all that sort of stuff. You know. So how many of those were launched? They were also working on some ballistic missiles. Now in 1950, von Braun and his rocket team moved to Huntsville, Alabama to develop ballistic missiles like the Redstone and Jupiter. The Jupiter having a flight ceiling of 380 miles, so the Jupiter missile could certainly get into space. 380 miles is well above the 62-mile Kármán line. They have 2,700 kilometre range, these missiles, these Jupiter missiles. So stuff was being launched into space well before 1957. So 380 miles in altitude, 2,700 kilometres range. So the altitude in kilometres, 610 kilometres. That's for the Jupiter ballistic missile, pre-1957. It was truly in space. The Redstone had a flight ceiling of 58.7 miles, which, whilst not quite reaching the Kármán line at 62 miles, 58 miles up is still considered high enough to be, it's high enough to be considered space. I'd say the Jupiter easily, this one would just scrape in as being in space. So Wernher von Braun and his rocket team were playing around with V2s. They were mucking around with the Jupiter missiles and the Redstone missiles, and they were trying to get them go higher and faster pre-1957. So how many of those blew up above the planet? How much of that was just space junk, How much space junk did they put up there? Remember, the Russians would have been doing the same thing. They'd have been playing around with their ballistic missiles, and they would have had many failures before they got Sputnik to orbit. I mean, how much junk in space did that create? How many went up there and just blew up? So when you consider Villarroel's objects don't generate their own light, they reflect sunlight, they don't appear to maneuver, they just appear in straight lines, just like space junk would. So I think whatever appears on Villarroel's photographic plates are far more likely to be space junk from the US and Russian rocket experiments, ballistic missile testing, than any visits from ET. Now, has Villarroel looked at any pre-Second World War photographic plates? Pre-V2? Has she looked at any from the 30s? Supposedly an ET spacecraft crashed in Italy in 1933. And the Pope squirreled it away. He's got it in the basement of the Vatican. God. So Dr. Villarroel, if you get to watch this, take a look at some plates before, pre-Second World War, pre-V2, and see if you can find anything. And bear in mind Werner von Braun and Co. and his rocket research team, Operation Paperclip at the end of the Second World War. They went to America. They took V2 rockets with them. And they spent between 1945 and 1957 improving them, working on other ballistic missiles. Jupiter has quite impressive specifications. 610 kilometres high, 2,700 kilometres velocity, speed. So there was stuff kicking around before 1957 that was getting into space. And because it was early research work, chances are it got up there and exploded, leaving debris, reflecting sunlight as it tumbled through space. Above the, in the view of the Palomar telescope, I think that's far more likely than ETs visiting. I don't think they're going to come all this way and not say hello to somebody significant, to the UN or somebody. They're not going to come and abduct a lumberjack. Now, I saw Matt Garrison, State Director of MUFON, who showed some perfectly clear images of a warship and the usual fuzzy monochromatic mess that was supposed to show the inside of an ET spacecraft. It was beyond pathetic as usual. We couldn't see anything at all, just light and dark coloured, light and dark fuzzy blobs. Next caller, please. Oh yeah, I did note the Shrink's visit to Mars in more than one place. I thought I did, because as I said, I write these notes over the week, so it's possible I saw something, fell about laughing, made a note, and then completely forgot about it, and then saw something else. Yeah, 2:20 and backs. She went to a city called Ares Prime on Mars, and she woke up. She came out of a hallucinogenic drug stupor. Randy Kramer is also claiming to have been there. Captain K, Randy Kramer. Oh, he's the guy that showed the image of an alien, which was actually an image from the Deviant Art website called Fairy Eyes. He said it was an alien he interacted with. He showed an artist's impression of an Arcturian mothership for FFS. It's nonsense, really is drivel. So, yeah. So I've forgotten her name already. This Shrink. I think if she believes what she's saying, I think she should be in a rubber room, to be perfectly honest. If she comes out of a hallucinogenic drug stupor and still believes what she's saying, she should be put in a rubber room and probably fixed up with the Shrink herself. All this super soldier, it's a hodgepodge of what Randy Kramer's been saying for a long time, Corey Good's been saying for a long time, what all this super soldier bullshit was, 10 or 15 years ago. So I put a line through this Dr. Milano, and I won't be wasting any more time with Dr. Milano. Needless to say, if she's got a book coming out, which wouldn't surprise me, she won't be getting any of my money. Is that it? Did I say that? She had patients and she gave them these hallucinogenic drugs, and she managed to get all these repressed memories out of them about being involved with the secret space program and going to Mars and interacting with aliens and all that. So she tried the hallucinogenic drugs herself, and blow me down, she found that she had repressed memories of experiencing exactly the same thing. Well, how dumb would you have to be to believe that, really? I mean, yeah, I think that's it. So there's not very much this week. I did see that Michael, the elusive Michael, was being interviewed on one of these YouTube channels. Michael. I didn't listen to very much of it. I got the impression Michael had FA to offer. Which is probably why Arrow told him to take a hike. Zero tangible evidence. What else did I see? oh, there's gross exaggeration on one of these UFO fanboy panel type YouTube channels, talking about Villarroels pictures, saying there was thousands and thousands and thousands of them. In fact, I think she said there was 9 candidates that were worth looking at. These people will spruik any old rubbish. You know, they don't bother to try and find out if anyone else was doing anything with rockets during 1945 and 1957. They just take it for granted there was nothing in space before Sputnik in 1957. Because it goes along with their narrative. So, there we go. Fairly short one this week. Hardly worth reporting this stuff, really. I mean, most of it is complete and utter rubbish. I mean, the only thing really worth reporting was the bit about Dr. Villarroel's paper not being accepted by the archive, the physicists' document site, and that although her papers were passed as by peer review, they said there wasn't enough evidence there to say what it was. They said there's something there, they think there's physical objects there, but there's not enough evidence to say what they are. And of course, with a claim as big as extraterrestrials are coming here and crashing here, you need tangible evidence to back that up. You can't just look at dots on a photographic plate. And if you watch this, Mr. Coulthart, get some kind of clue, will you? You know, geostationary satellites do not move across photographic plates. Nobody has provided any evidence whatsoever that these objects were in geostationary orbit. It's space junk. The most likely explanation for what's on Villarroel's plates is space junk, because of all the experimenting that was going on at the time. Cold War, ballistic missiles, big rockets going up into space for weapons testing purposes, as well as, you know, to see if people can get a spacecraft in orbit, I suspect. Anyway, I think that's it. It's a short one this week. If there's anything worth commenting on, I'll do another video next week. As always, if you struggled through the video all the way to this point, many thanks for watching, and maybe I'll catch you again.